Hi, I'm Titli Nihaan, and this is my somewhat breezy garden. It's not been a particularly good week at all this week. We've had a lot of rain and it's been pretty windy too, and as you can see I've got my winter jumper out. Now they're forecasting some extremely high winds here for Sunday night, Monday, and that's kind of focusing my thinking a bit for what I'm going to do this week. And I think I'm going to start with the beans. Now if you look carefully you'll say, but there's still some beans to pick, but to be honest what's left on here now isn't worth picking. And anyway, I've got a freezer full of beans, enough to last me till next year, so time to dismantle the beans. I actually find it easier to pull the sticks out, and then I can just pick the beans straight out the ground and pop it in the bin. Job done. Just the parsnips and the leeks now, but they can be harvested a bit later on in the year, and they won't get wind damaged either. Hello puppy, have you seen something? Have you? What have you seen? Can you smell something? What can you see? Hello puppy. Now the next problem I've got is pretty much what I had the other week. My corn's blown down, and this hasn't taken much wind at all to blow it down. To be honest, I think these corns are as ripe as they're going to get. So I think it's time to take them down. I mean, there's certainly plenty of corn cobs, but how many of them will be ripe enough to eat is another matter entirely. I'll have a look in a minute, but for now, last one. This is a big fat cob. Well done. Now I guess the other thing I can do really, there's no need anymore for the cat protection, because there's nothing really to protect except for one rather sad looking cauliflower and a few beets. So I might as well remove the cat protection. And in reality, I might as well do the same on this side. While I'm at it, while I'm in the mood, because you know, when you get in the mood, you just have to go with it. Into the shed, into the shed, into the shiny shed. Out of the shed, out of the shed, out of the shiny shed. Into the shed, into the shed, into the shiny shed again. Out of the shed, out of the shed, out of the shiny shed again. I think before I have a look at my corn cobs, I'll just run the fork over and get a few weeds up. Don't like weeds. If you catch them early enough, they're much quicker, much easier to get rid of. Oh, that's not bad. Seeing this empty bed is kind of a bit of mixed emotion really. I mean, it's late October, the clock's changed tonight, and it's a kind of reminder that winter's on its way. But on the other hand, seeing this empty bed is getting me really excited for next year and next spring, and thinking about what I'm going to grow here. So, I've washed my don-dons, they're nice and clean, and I've got my little pile of hidden treasure here. It's quite exciting really. So let's see what we've got. Ooh. All done. Okay, it's nothing to write home about, but let's remind ourselves why I was so late in planting corn this year. Now it says to put seed pairs together, and this is a variety called incredible F1. And I'll give them a good water. It's been several weeks now since I planted my corn and there is absolutely no sign of them. So, I'm taking emergency measures to deal with this. I've got myself some pots. I'm going to fill these with compost and I'm going to put some bean seeds and some sweet corn in here. Dun 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 dun. So I've got 16 plants and I'm going to pop them into a 4x4 matrix. Give them all a good watering. Well, I know what I'm having for supper tomorrow night. Ooh, spots of rain. I'm going to rush in for lunch. So here I am back in the greenhouse after a rather delicious lunch of homemade granary bread with cheese. It looks a little bit Spartan over there now. Not to worry, I've got some tomatoes I can pick and I think I'm going to be spending a bit of time this afternoon making passata. Yeah, some little tiddly ones up here, but they're ripe. I had a message this week from Sean Cameron at the Horticultural Channel. Another fine YouTube channel you should check out. And, just get me going. And he said that I was only a few subscriptions away from being the #1 UK gardening YouTube channel. I think that's what he said. Now, he might be right. I don't know, I don't follow such things. But if that's the case, I find it rather ironic. Because I don't think of this as a gardening channel. I mean, I don't know that much about gardening. Well, not compared to other people who know an awful lot more than I do. Like Sean, for example. That's quite a nice one. I think of these weekly videos as an old woman pottering around in a garden, really, sharing with you her crazy thoughts from time to time. Oh, I'm very grateful to those of you who follow me and who watch my videos. So thank you. Well, that's not too bad. There's a few pound here, varying quality. Tiddlers, some quite nice looking ones. But they'll all go to making a nice passata, which I can store in jars for several months and use them to make pasta sauces and pizza sauces. Would you like to see me make passata? I thought you would. I'll do that later. There are still some green tomatoes and slightly red tomatoes that need to ripen. I'm going to leave them on the plant for the time being, give them another couple of weeks and see if they ripen. But in the meantime, I'm going to cut off all the excess foliage. So that's cool. I've opened up the plant a bit. I've taken off all the shoots that were really going nowhere with nothing on them, you know, and cut off things like this, totally useless. So hopefully, fingers crossed, all these green tomatoes will redden up within the next week or two. While I was having lunch, I did manage to check the weather forecast, and they are still forecasting very severe winds just south of here. We might be lucky and not get the 80-mile-an-hour gusts, but one thing's for certain, it is going to be very windy. I'll take these off because they're pretty much rotted. Shame really, because I do like this rose. Gives some very pretty blooms. Well, that's that for another year. I can feel rain in the air and it's getting quite gusty at times as well. I think that's all I'm going to do for today outdoors, but at least I know that when those winds come tomorrow night, I'm not going to find my garden littered with bean canes and sweet corn plants. I've come in my shed again because after last week a few of you wanted a bit more detail on how I constructed my work table. So here's a brief rundown. The frame for the table is basically made out of 4cm by 7cm timber. I've made some end pieces. I made 2 of these end pieces and held them together with glue and these wood bolts here to hold it nice and firm. I then used the same timber to run right the way along the length of the table and held the end pieces with these traverse pieces by gluing and using some 5-inch wood screws. Big beefy beasts. To square everything up, I've got 1/2 inch by 1 inch laths, which are attached with screws to the inside of the end pieces, and there's a piece that runs right along the back as well. That way you can make sure that all the joints are square. The top surface of the table comprises a 15mm piece of composite board, and on the top I've put a 6mm sheet of MDF to create a nice smooth flat surface. I've glued it to the underneath composite board using contact adhesive, and I've varnished this a few times with a satin adhesive to keep it waterproof. MDF doesn't go well with lots of water. Around the edges, this is actually part of the Mark I Acme fruit cage, and its purpose, it's screwed into the boards, is really to keep the edges nice and neat. Again, MDF and composite boards damage very easily on the edges, so this will keep it looking nice. And on the back, I've put this batten to stop things rolling off the back of the table, and for me having to fidget round underneath the table trying to fish things out. So that's it in a nutshell. So here are my tomatoes. It's about 1.4 kilos here. Pull off the little hats and just chop them coarsely. Toss the bits in a large pan. Toss. If you've got any tomatoes with manky bits like this one, just chop that off, throw it away, carry on as before. And voila, 1 pan of chopped tomatoes. Pop them on the stove with 1/2 mug of water. Turn on the heat. When it comes to the boil, give it a stir. Turn the heat right down. Now cover and simmer for at least an hour. After about an hour, I turn off the heat. Whiz it. Whizzed. Then I pass it through a sieve to get out any pips and bits of skin. I do push it through the sieve, I don't just sort of let it drain. And after a lot of pressing and pushing and squeezing, what I'm left with is something that's just skin and pips and some passata. Now I like to bring it back to the boil in a clean pan, and then I let it simmer uncovered for about 30 minutes just to concentrate it up a bit before I put it into hot sterile jars. And Bob's your uncle, jars of passata. These are ones I made earlier actually, but you get the point. Well, there's nothing left to do now except batten down the hatches and wait for this hurricane to arrive. Thanks for watching this week, and do join me next week in Titli's busy garden.